Picture yourself standing on the battlefield of your own consciousness. Every single day, you confront powerful forces pulling you in countless directions, desires, temptations, and impulses that feel impossible to resist. Some are subtle, sneaking into your awareness without detection. Others overwhelm you completely, consuming your thoughts, draining your energy, and even distorting your life's purpose. Among all the forces competing for dominance over human willpower, one has consistently shaped the fate of empires, determined the rise and fall of great individuals, and challenged even history's most brilliant minds. That force is lust. What if I told you that whoever conquers this singular force holds the key to mastering everything else in life? What if overcoming lust isn't merely about self-restraint, but about unlocking unprecedented levels of clarity, power, and mastery over your entire existence? This isn't mere speculation, it's a profound truth echoed by many of history's greatest philosophers, spiritual leaders, and thinkers. Today, you'll discover exactly why. The paradox of desire. Lust has always represented a paradox, simultaneously a source of creation and destruction. It has inspired magnificent works of art, fueled poets' imaginations, and driven warriors into battle. Yet it has also caused the downfall of kings, destroyed countless reputations, and generated immeasurable suffering throughout human history. Throughout the ages, we encounter numerous stories of individuals who reach the pinnacle of power only to be brought down by their inability to master their desires. Consider Alexander the Great, who conquered vast territories yet struggled to control his own impulses. Or Julius Caesar, whose strategic brilliance reshaped Rome, but whose personal entanglements created vulnerabilities. Even Napoleon Bonaparte, despite his extraordinary military genius, allowed personal relationships to influence his leadership decisions. These were visionaries and men of action, but in moments when desires controlled them, they lost their clarity, power, and ultimately control over their own destinies. Why does this pattern repeat? Why have even history's most formidable individuals, those who literally shaped human civilization, struggled to master their own desires? The answer lies in the fundamental nature of lust itself. Unlike hunger or thirst, which have natural limits and serve clear biological functions, lust is fundamentally insatiable, a fire that burns more intensely the more it's fed. When left unchecked, it consumes not just time and energy, but also the very essence of focus and willpower. The science of desire. Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, studied this phenomenon extensively. He proposed that much human behavior stems from unconscious desires, particularly sexual ones. He argued that when these impulses remain uncontrolled, they can lead to destructive behavioral patterns. But here's the crucial insight. Freud also believed that the ability to redirect and sublimate these desires could generate extraordinary creativity, intelligence, and productivity. In other words, the very energy-fueling lust can be transformed into something far more valuable and powerful. This understanding isn't just a modern psychological concept. Some of history's greatest minds recognized this truth. Nikola Tesla, one of the most brilliant inventors who ever lived, was known for practicing celibacy. He believed that by abstaining from indulgence, he could channel his entire mental and creative energy into his work. His remarkable ability to concentrate, push boundaries, and develop innovations that fundamentally shaped our modern world was, in many ways, a direct result of his self-discipline. The ancient Stoic philosophers, Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, understood that genuine freedom doesn't come from indulging every impulse, but from mastering them. To be controlled by desire is to live as a slave. To control desire is to possess true power. Marcus Aurelius himself, one of Rome's greatest emperors and philosophers, wrote extensively about self-mastery, reminding himself daily that a person controlled by passions remains weak, while one who rules over them becomes unshakable. Reclaiming your power. So now I ask you, how much of your life, energy, and potential has been consumed by distractions born from unchecked desires? How much of your focus has been stolen by momentary indulgences that offer nothing in return except regret? More importantly, what might happen if you reclaimed that energy, restored that focus, and redirected it towards something truly meaningful. Many believe self-mastery means suppression, denying yourself pleasure. But that fundamentally misunderstands the goal. The real objective is transformation. Instead of being enslaved by impulses, you become their master. Rather than chasing temporary gratification, you channel that same powerful energy into building something far greater, whether success, wisdom, creativity, or profound fulfillment. Consider this: every moment of temptation represents a test. Each time you choose discipline over indulgence, you grow stronger. With every victory over desire, you gain greater control over your mind and your destiny. But how do you achieve this? What are the psychological, philosophical, and spiritual techniques enabling true self-mastery? Most importantly, what ultimate reward awaits those who succeed in this internal battle? The answers to these questions reveal a path few dare to walk, but those who do experience profound transformation. Understanding the enemy. The battle against lust isn't merely about resisting temptation. It requires understanding the deeper forces operating within the human mind. If you attempt to fight without comprehending its roots, you'll constantly struggle. But once you uncover the mechanisms driving this impulse, you gain the power to completely master it. Lust isn't simply physical desire, it's a complex psychological and emotional phenomenon deeply wired into the human brain. At its core, it connects to the brain's reward system, the same neurological circuitry governing addiction, pleasure, and motivation. When someone indulges in lust, their brain releases a surge of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This creates a powerful feedback loop. The more one engages in these behaviors, the more intensely the brain craves them, creating compulsive patterns extremely difficult to break. Modern science has revealed that excessive indulgence in lustful pleasures, whether through pornography, casual relationships, or excessive fantasizing, can rewire the brain in ways that weaken willpower, reduce motivation, and even alter emotional connections. Neuroscience studies show that prolonged exposure to artificial stimulation can lead to desensitization, meaning the same experiences no longer provide satisfaction. This explains why many people who indulge in these behaviors find themselves trapped in cycles of endless craving, constantly seeking more, yet feeling increasingly empty. But here's a truth few recognize. The same neural circuits driving lust can be harnessed for higher purposes. The ancient concept of transmutation, the idea that raw energy can be redirected into something greater, isn't just spiritual belief, but scientifically supported reality. When someone learns to control and redirect sexual energy, that same force becomes fuel for creativity, ambition, discipline, and profound mental clarity. Masters of energy. Consider some of history's most disciplined figures, people who achieved unimaginable greatness. Leonardo da Vinci, one of humanity's most brilliant minds, was known for his extreme discipline, avoiding excessive indulgence to maintain sharp mental focus. Isaac Newton, among the greatest scientific minds ever, reportedly lived in complete dedication to his work, channeling all his energy into pursuing knowledge and discovery. These individuals understood something most people never grasp: mastering. Desire means mastering destiny. This principle appears deeply embedded in spiritual traditions worldwide. In many Eastern philosophies such as Taoism and certain branches of Hinduism, conserving and redirecting sexual energy is considered essential for achieving enlightenment and personal power. The yogic practice of brahmacharya teaches that sexual energy, when preserved and transformed, leads to heightened intelligence, deeper spiritual insight, and unshakable willpower. Many great sages and spiritual masters practiced celibacy or extreme discipline, not because they rejected pleasure, but because they understood that temporary gratification could never compare to the higher states of consciousness and power achieved through self-mastery. Western philosophy contains similar teachings. The Stoics emphasized that self-control forms the foundation of true strength. They believed being governed by desire indicated weakness, while controlling one's impulses demonstrated genuine power. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, taught that freedom isn't found in indulging every impulse, but in rising above them. He argued that the more someone surrenders to passions, the more enslaved they become. But those who govern their own minds become untouchable. The path to mastery. How does someone actually achieve this mastery? How do you break free from indulgence cycles and reclaim your mental and physical energy? The first step is awareness. Most people live completely unaware of lust's grip on them. They follow desires without questioning, mistaking pleasure for happiness and indulgence for fulfillment. Once you become aware, once you recognize the cycle for what it truly is, you gain the power to break it. The second step is discipline. Discipline isn't about deprivation, it's about taking control. It means recognizing that every time you resist an impulse, you grow stronger. Just as muscles develop through resistance, the mind grows through self-control. Initially, this feels difficult, but eventually the brain rewires itself. Urges lose their power, distractions fade, and in their place, you gain something infinitely more valuable: clarity, strength, and unshakable willpower. The third step is redirection. Lust represents energy that doesn't simply disappear. It can be transformed. History's greatest individuals didn't merely suppress desires, they redirected them. Energy that would otherwise be wasted on fleeting pleasure was instead channeled into building, creating, and achieving greatness. The artist channels it into their work, the leader into their vision, the warrior into discipline, and the seeker into wisdom. The ultimate reward. One question remains: what happens when someone truly masters this force? What ultimate reward awaits those who conquer lust? Imagine for a moment that you've completely mastered your desires. No longer are you pulled in different directions by fleeting temptations. No longer do you waste energy chasing momentary pleasures that leave you feeling empty. Instead, you stand with absolute clarity, your mind sharp, your will unbreakable. What does life look like from this vantage point? What does freedom truly feel like? To understand the ultimate reward of conquering lust, we must first understand indulgence's true cost. Every moment spent chasing pleasure is a moment not invested in building something meaningful. Every ounce of energy lost to temporary gratification is energy that could have fueled growth, mastery, or pursuit of greatness. This is why history's most powerful individuals weren't those who indulged every desire, but those who mastered them. When Alexander the Great stood at the height of his empire, one of his trusted advisors, the philosopher Diogenes, reminded him that true greatness wasn't in conquering lands, but in conquering oneself. Alexander, despite his victories, remained enslaved to impulses, while Diogenes, a man who owned nothing but his own will, was truly free. This same truth appears across every field of human achievement. Examine the greatest athletes, the most brilliant minds, the most successful leaders. They aren't ruled by impulse. They don't allow distractions to derail their mission. Instead, they harness their energy, directing it toward their vision with relentless focus. Consider Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist and philosopher who understood that self-mastery forms the foundation of true power. He trained not just his body, but his mind, eliminating distractions and strengthening his will. He believed discipline wasn't about restriction, but about freedom. The freedom to act with purpose, move without hesitation, and live without being controlled by impulse. The transformation. Here's where true transformation begins. When someone conquers lust, they don't simply gain control over one desire, they gain control over all desires. Why? Because lust represents one of the most powerful forces in the human mind. It's deeply rooted in our biology, influencing thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. When you master it, you prove to yourself that you control the deepest levels of your being. And if you can control that, what else can you control? Everything. This explains why those who transcend lust often report profound changes throughout their lives. Their focus sharpens, their confidence grows, they discover more energy, greater clarity, and a deeper sense of purpose. Things that once distracted them, social, media, mindless entertainment, trivial drama, suddenly seem unimportant. Instead, they develop laser focus on their goals, driven by something far greater than fleeting pleasure, the pursuit of mastery. Psychologists studying this phenomenon have found that individuals practicing self-discipline in one area naturally, develop it in others. When someone resists an urge, their brain strengthens neural pathways responsible for self-control. Over time, this creates a compounding effect. What begins as struggle eventually becomes effortless. The person who once fought against distraction now moves through life with absolute purpose. This explains why ancient warriors, monks, and sages placed such high value on self-control. They understood that discipline wasn't just about morality, it was about power. The samurai, for example, trained rigorously not just in combat, but in mental discipline. They believed a warrior unable to control his desires would ultimately be defeated not by enemies, but by himself. This principle applies equally to modern life. Someone who cannot control their impulses will always remain at the mercy of external forces, swayed by advertising, manipulated by social pressures, trapped in cycles of addiction and distraction. But the person who masters themselves becomes unstoppable. Transcendence. Eventually, in the journey towards self-mastery, resistance becomes unnecessary. What once felt like struggle becomes effortless. This represents true transcendence. When someone no longer fights against desire, but rises completely beyond it. What does this state look like? What happens when someone fully conquers lust, not just through discipline, but through transformation? The answer lies in understanding higher energy. Every spiritual tradition recognizes that raw desire simply represents untapped potential, energy, that can either control a person or be controlled by them. For those who truly master it, it becomes something far greater, a source of creative power, a force fueling purpose, vision, and wisdom. In ancient Eastern philosophy, this idea appears embedded in practices like Tantra and Taoist energy cultivation. These teachings suggest that sexual energy, when properly harnessed, isn't something to fear or suppress, but something to transform into spiritual and intellectual power. The practice of retaining and redirecting this energy reportedly increases mental clarity, sharpens intuition, and deepens connection to higher consciousness states. The sages who mastered this principle became known for their immense wisdom, unshakable presence, and an aura of power others could feel without words. The same understanding appears in Western thought, though in different forms. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche spoke about sublimation, taking base desires and transforming them into higher pursuits. He believed true greatness wasn't found in those indulging every whim, but in those channeling inner chaos into something magnificent. Modern psychology supports this concept as well. Carl Jung, one of the most influential thinkers in psychology, described this process as individuation, integrating the deeper, primal aspects of the human psyche into a higher, more developed self. Jung believed repressing desire wasn't the goal. Rather, the key was understanding it, harnessing it, and using it as fuel for something greater. This explains why history's most brilliant artists, inventors, and visionaries often demonstrated extraordinary ability to channel their energy into creation. Nikola Tesla spoke openly about how abstaining from indulgence gave him unmatched focus and mental clarity. He believed preserving and redirecting this energy allowed him to access mental states others couldn't reach. The ultimate power. Here's the most powerful realization. When you conquer lust, you don't just gain control over one desire, you gain the ability to shape reality itself. Why? Because the very energy driving desire is the same energy driving creation, ambition, and transformation. When this energy isn't wasted, it builds within you, strengthening your presence, sharpening your mind, and fueling your ability to achieve what others consider impossible. Imagine walking through life with absolute confidence, knowing nothing can shake you. Imagine possessing a mind so clear, so focused, that you see opportunities where others see only obstacles. Imagine being so completely in control of yourself that no external force, no temptation, distraction, or fleeting pleasure can pull you from your purpose. This isn't fantasy, it's the natural result of mastering desire. At this level, you no longer feel you're sacrificing anything. You don't feel deprived or long for things you once craved. You see through the illusion that what seemed pleasurable was actually a form of enslavement. True freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's not being controlled by anything. The moment you reach this mastery level, you unlock something few ever do: the ability to create life on your own terms. This is the power awaiting those who conquer lust. It isn't just self-control, it's self-transcendence. It's the key unlocking the highest potential within the human mind, the secret separating ordinary from extraordinary, weak from powerful, lost from enlightened. The question now becomes, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue living at the mercy of impulse, or will you take control of your own destiny? The choice is yours, but understand this fundamental truth. He who conquers lust conquers everything else. Those who master themselves master the world.